and kind of the influences, the meat industry's changed a lot. So, you know, in a little village in India, you know, there's no refrigeration or anything, so usually the meat is killed right before it's eaten. So you know, if a family knows that monks are going to come over, they might kill a chicken, and then the monks find out that that chicken was killed because they're coming over. At that point, the monks are not allowed to eat it. It's not a major rule. It's a a minor rule. So it's one that a monk could overlook if he wanted to. But now, you know, the monks are coming over, and you think, oh, I'll serve them meat. You don't go out and kill a chicken that's in your backyard. You go down to the store and buy a chicken off the shelf. And so if the monk accepts that, is that a violation of the rule? Well, the meat was not killed, you know, for the purpose of feeding monks, but it was purchased for the purpose of feeding monks. And every time you purchase a chicken off the shelf, somebody has to kill another chicken to replace it. So, this is a rule that has generally in Theravada countries not been adapted to modern circumstances. The rule is a monk, you know, is not violating the rule as it was originally written, but if we adapted it to modern circumstances, you could say that there's a violation because the monk is being kind of implicated in killing of animals, very indirectly, more indirectly. So it's a matter of how you look at it. Meat eating, by the way, in East Asia, in the Mahayana countries, China, Japan, and Korea, it's simply strictly prohibited for monks. Monks don't eat meat under any circumstances. And actually, this is part of the basis of my vegetarianism, because I was a Mahayana priest for many years, and also I do have reservations about the treatment of animals on factory farms and things like that. It raises ethical issues for me. So anyway, the rules are adjusted to circumstances. One of the things is, you know, is when there's a cultural understanding of a rule, there's a certain cultural behavior around the rule, it becomes very hard for a monk to go against that understanding, even if it's not the monk's understanding of the rule. So, for instance, you know, actually, I accept money offered in envelopes all the time in Austin, and the reason is that I'm usually with other monks, and I don't want to be. There's a cultural expectation that you can offer monks money in an envelope, and so, you know, people do that, and monks in turn accept that, but it's very difficult to be the odd monk. You know, when you're in a long line of monks, as I've been sometimes with some very eminent sietos, very senior people, and people are offering them envelopes, and they come to me, and I cannot very well say, monks are not allowed to accept money even in an envelope. So the main point is that these rules have experienced a lot of flexibility through the years. Cultural understandings have developed around these rules, and those cultural understandings are generally not very far off base. If the cultural understanding actually demands more strictness than the rule itself demands, that's fine. If it demands less, usually it's for a reason in that culture. It is to make some kind of adjustment and some kind of concession you know, like for the ability of the monk to accept something graciously because it's offered. So I'm not advocating, you know, a strict interpretation of all of these rules. I just want to say that there is some variation. In general, Mahayana tradition is much more willing to make concessions to rules, and in fact, sometimes some teachers are willing to make so many concessions that the rule they effectively just disappears. It's, you know, if the rule is at all inconvenient, then forget about it. And it's often considered to be the compassionate approach. And so in the Mahayana tradition, you know, in general is very lax. But you do find these cases like meat eating where the Mahayana is actually stricter. And a lot of monks, Mahayana monks, Chinese monks, practice very strictly. The issue that really interests me, and I hope I hope people here take it to heart as well, is how should Westerners observe these rules? So the fact is, when Westerners approach these rules, they have no cultural understandings at all towards these rules. They do not know what the rules are about. They don't know what the rules are. They are completely confused about them, and as a result, they have to be told. You know, these things need to be explained carefully. And my own feeling, as Buddhism comes to the West, is that the best place to start with the rules is a very strict interpretation, as strict as you can, as is practical under modern circumstances. So whereas I don't really mind if a Burmese, you know, hands me a contribution, a money donation, and I'm actually quite used to it. You know, I will for Westerners, I will make them know that is not proper. It is because you know, basically in the West we will develop our own cultural understandings, and the rules will be compromised in various ways. But it's best to start with a very strict interpretation of the rule, as strict as you can, I think, and I think that most Western monks I know actually follow the Vinaya very closely, take it very seriously, and I think this is a proper approach in the West, because it can be very easy to make lots of concessions to Westerners because of existing, you know, cultural expectations like hugging, and pretty soon, pretty soon there's nothing left of the rules. They can be compromised very quickly in the West. So it's really the Westerners that need to adapt to the rules, rather than the rules adapting to the you know, to the general community. In Burma, I think, you know, people have done an excellent job of adapting, and I think it's been adapted according to needs. But in general, you know, monks follow them very carefully, you know, especially in the Shuijin Nikaya that I belong to. Following them correctly, I think, is very well respected. Whereas in some traditions, you know, some of the Mahayana traditions, actually being too serious about the rules is considered to be kind of uptight, being, you know, too strict. So my own feeling is that as we come to the West, that Westerners, the whole idea of bringing Buddhism to the West is not to make a compromise, find a halfway point between Western culture and Buddhist culture, but to let Buddhist culture inform people and allow people to absorb Buddhist culture completely. It is going to challenge their cultural expectations, but I think that is part of the force of Buddhism. It should challenge their cultural expectations because Buddhism has always been a civilizing force. I happen to think that my own country needs a lot of civilizing, and Buddhism is a force to do that. The same thing applies to things like vows. Buddhism is probably the bowingest religion in the world. Throughout, every Buddhist country, does vows, to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. I know of no exceptions. It's certainly true in Japan, where Buddhism has suffered a sharp decline. Those formal aspects like bowing are very important, and yet for Westerners, they're very confusing. Westerners don't know what the vows are about and want explanations for those things. And I think it's very important that they learn those things as part of Buddhist culture. The vow has been a very resilient thing. Of course, it's a common gesture in India, putting your hands together like this. But it's Buddhism that has taken it beyond India and brought it around the world. And I'm convinced, although it's never been proven, that the reason Christians, when they pray, they go like this, it's a Buddhist influence. We know Buddhism was in Alexandria, Egypt, not too far from the Holy Land, before Jesus was born. And we know that now, and so this is probably almost certainly an influence, because it's not a Jewish gesture. The Jews don't make use of that. So it is something that has been carried with Buddhism everywhere, and something that needs to be taught in the West. I know all of these things because I've personally, as a Westerner coming to Buddhism at a late age, I've had resistance to everything. I've experienced all of this, and it's taken me a long process to embrace this, and I've never regretted embracing it. I've found that the vows are a very, very powerful practice for me, and I think they should be for other people. So when I'm in a process of basically one foot in the Western community and one foot in the Burmese community now, and at our monastery we have a lot of Westerners that come. A lot of them are very devout. A lot of them have assimilated the Burmese forms of reverence many years ago, and follow them scrupulously. But I'm always very careful to make sure that people, if they come and it looks like they want to come back, that they start learning those forms. Okay, that's all I have to say today. Any questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Is the man who is staying in the hotel, is he